Okay, so now let's welcome Arthur Dewan and Ian Grigg from Chamapesa.
And I'm behind you.
Good luck.
Keep going. Morning, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. So my name is Arthur Duhan, and I'm here from Chamapesa. In Kenya, we're going up. Somebody want to fix this? Hi, sorry about that glitch. So, in Kenya, there's an $8 billion market for savings that's being run on pencil and paper on people's tabletops. This is the world of table banking. This is Chamapesa's opportunity. Each of these tabletops is called a Chama. A Chama is an informal club of relatives, friends, co-workers, members of a social club who all have, therefore, a bond of trust between each other because they're in a social group already, and a common interest in doing something with their savings. Kenyans are usually a member of 1, 2, or 3 Chamas, and so you get this network effect where they're in a sports club Chama and a family Chama. So this is what accounts for the fact that there are about 1.2 million active Chamas in Kenya at the moment. Now, a Chama works really well for defensive savings, a new school uniform, a broken leg, something like that. But they don't scale particularly well. So what we need to do is provide a solution that gets away from the 1 or 2 trust issues and operational issues that Chamas have, and also brings scalability to them. And we do that with blockchains and smart contracts. So Chamapesa puts, the other side of the coin is that Kenya already completely gets fintech. The Kenyans use M-Pesa payment systems over their mobile phones to do a lot of the payments that run the informal economy in Kenya. So we have a culture in Kenya that operates informal systems, and we have a culture in Kenya that's comfortable with fintech. So we are going to harness these 2 things and put them together using a mobile phone app that uses blockchains to provide services that will allow the securitization, the secure harnessing of the data that the Chamas have, yet stitch it together in such a way that the Chamas can interoperate and scale to do proper business size opportunities, which is what the problem that the unbanked in Kenya suffer from at the moment. This slide shows the size of the opportunity. It also shows that how widespread these are. We're starting in Kenya because our team are Kenyan based and we have expertise in Kenya. But table banking is something that exists throughout Africa. It has a different name and some slightly different rules, but the concept is what the whole of the unbanked in Africa use to mobilize their savings. After that, we find, in fact, throughout the whole of the Southern Hemisphere, people operate table banking, and people who migrate from the Southern Hemisphere bring table banking with them to the Northern Hemisphere. So I'm going to hand you over now to Ian Grigg, who's going to explain about the tech, how the tech fits into the market opportunity. Thanks for listening.
Okay, the clicker.
That one.
All right. Oh, there's our team. So talking about the technical issue of reaching across to Africa, we're talking about 1 million of these groups in Africa, in Kenya, and then if you multiply that out, we're probably talking 25 to 30 million groups in Africa, which means we need to give them 25 million issuances of cryptocurrencies. How do you scale that? What we do is we use a mechanism called the Ricardian contract, which is turning a crypto issuance into a contract metaphor, and by using hashes we can actually decentralize the entire process such that it's easily decentralized across a continent. If we think about the way a Chama works, it has two issuances of value, one of which is its shares or its membership in its savings opportunities, the other of which is basically a cash. The first of those needs to be issued in a decentralized fashion across all of those groups such that they do not interfere with each other, hence that's important. The second of those, something like a cash or a monetary unit, will be shared amongst all of the different chamas, and for that we would use a standard blockchain approach. The large challenge that we've got, however, is not the issuance of cryptocurrencies. That's essentially a solved problem in this day and age. What we've got is a requirement to capture the business operations of the Chama, which basically means working with people. And that is an unsolved problem in the world of cryptocurrency. That's that little white circle in the middle there. Managing the records, record keeping, and the individuals, the membership and so forth for the groups. Once we have that in place, which is what we're working on right now, then we'll be able to field an app and build out the rest. The opportunity includes the ability to integrate with existing banks and money systems, such as M-Pesa in Kenya. And also, they are very good at the way they invest their money and finance and so forth, so we can turn this cryptocurrency technology into loans and so forth.
Sorry.
We're wrapping
Thank
up,
you.
are we?
We're out of
Okay.
time.
Super.
Ian and Arthur from Chamapesa, thank you very, very much. First question.
You want to come on? Okay, I like these kinds of projects because it seems like it's solving a real problem, especially in the third world. And I think cryptocurrency, that's one of the areas that can really, really help not just individuals, but a country as a whole. So I appreciate what you guys are doing there. My question, though, is I've been to Kenya, I've been to Africa quite a bit, and you're solving the tabletop banking, as you called it, right? But from my understanding is it would seem like they need to have a mobile phone or a smartphone to be able to engage in this, which of course I think is a big challenge for anyone in Africa who might not have the means to have that kind of smartphone or that capability. Most of them have either flip phones, if they even have a phone at all. How do you get around that challenge?
Yeah, they're very familiar with phones. They've leaped past the PC or laptop generation that we went through. When I was in Kenya about 3 or 4 years ago, they had actually crossed the point where 50% of phones that were sold were smartphones. So they don't all have them yet, but what is happening is it's migrating through the system. It's also they keep out their flip phones or their old phones to use on the buses, the matatus. They pull out the smartphones at home because otherwise they are spotted and robbed. So it's...
Can I also add that the first draft of the software that Ian wrote was actually a Java app that ran on the small phones. So it's very lightweight stuff, and it will run on a feature phone. We're hoping to follow the market up to the smartphone phase, but we can do it on small phones as well.
What's the feedback you've had so far from the chamas that you've spoken to? Have you actually got a few use cases or the community there that you've spoken to?
We've trialed our app with a few chamas, and at the transaction level, they're extremely happy. It saves their activity, it brings their activity cost down to about a third of the time it takes to do their accounting. At the member level, we haven't tried it yet, but what we've been doing is researching the way in which their memberships work, and we're still learning that process.
Okay, we have a question from Alex.
Thanks. And when we're looking at projects, I've seen a lot of kind of the payments and remittances and solving this use case in Africa as well. And I agree with Daniel that it's an awesome use case for blockchain and one of sort of the proto ones. I'm interested in sort of the mindsets of the Chamas. And you mentioned that they were going much more on the defensive side of defensive savings towards kind of those capital costs of big changes or big life events. how do you sort of get them to evolve their mindset into using their capital more productively, regardless of whether it's a technological base or anything, but kind of the mindset change? How do you go about solving that problem?
That's already there. There are several different types of Chamas, and there's also ad hoc Chamas which come together to do those sort of defensive savings issues. There's a couple which are very interesting, one of which is simply saving money to invest. They'll save for a while, like 2 years, and then they'll go out and buy a bus, and they'll run that bus up and down the streets as their investment. The other form is a more dynamic one. The women will come in from the marketplace at the end of their trading day, pay off their loans, add their savings, and then at the end of the meeting, they'll make new loans to themselves, which will become their working capital for the next day's trading or the next month's trading. So they're already very, very sophisticated as far as our thinking would go.
Thank you.
Just one small addendum to that, which is they're acutely conscious that they're not making any interest on these savings. It's not in a bank, so they need and they know they're missing out on opportunities because it doesn't scale, and they know they need 500,000 shillings to invest in something rather than the 50,000 they have. So they know that scale is what's holding them back, as well as they're not getting any interest on it. So there is an appetite to go forward.
Okay. Thank you very, very much, Chamapesa, Arthur Dewan, and Ian Grigg.